Welcome back, football fans. In this video, I am going to take you through every single Premier League team in 24-25, give some thoughts, predictions, what state they're in at the minute. Some of them have just come up, some of them have no managers, some of them are losing players every week, and we will make some general predictions for them. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Arsenal title challenge. That is the only thing that is acceptable for Arsenal fans now, and I think they're sort of the new Liverpool of this mini era. Getting like 96 points as Liverpool did. Maybe that's what they'll do next year, and it might not be enough. They are a fantastic team. Defensively, one of the best teams I've seen, certainly away from home. In the last 10 years, they were so good this season, and they finished second. I expect them to challenge again. I expect them to bring in some new recruits, maybe another midfielder, and they will continue the progression, and I think they will be either first or second next season. I know that's not much of a prediction, but I expect Man City and Arsenal to be challenging once more. On to Aston Villa. What a season. They're in Europe, and with Europe comes more games, more stress. I think the fact that they've got Champions League is amazing because they've got players like Ollie Watkins, Douglas Luiz, even Kamara on his day. I think he's one of the very good, I'm not going to say the best, but one of the very good holding midfielders in the league, because when he wasn't there last season, they really missed him towards the end. And certainly in terms of the goals conceded, the control on games, I think Douglas Luiz needs that buddy next to him, which has been Kamara so successfully under Emery. So I do think they will drop off slightly, Aston Villa, but it's fine. It's okay. They're in the Champions League. Emery is going to be putting a lot of eggs in the basket of the Champions League. He will be fully expecting to get out of the group stage in the Champions League. And why not? Look at his record in Europe. So Aston Villa, I expect them to be pushing for 8th to 6th. 6, anything higher will be a bonus for them because they'll be on this magical Champions League journey. Again, I wouldn't bet against them getting out the group stages. All eyes on those draws when they come about. The games for the Premier League, the fixtures, because they determine so much, don't they? If you get a tough start to the season or whatever, if you're a new team coming up and you get a tough start, or you're a Man City and you get a positive start, shall we say, easy home games against nice, comfortable teams in the first month of the season, you're buzzing. On to Bournemouth and Iriola, talking about the fixture list generator. Bournemouth were dealt a very tough hand last season. Iriola, I think it was, 7 to 10 games without a victory. People were calling for him to be sacked. Not too many Bournemouth fans, because if you watched the games, you could see that there was performances there was good coaching there. And then it clicks, and they go on this run, and they were fantastic. Some of the best performances I've seen from last season were from Bournemouth. No joke. When they get it right, it clicks, and they've got the players, and they all do the jobs well. I think if they can invest and get some backups, if they lose Solanke, it's a massive blow. It's a huge blow if they lose Solanke, because Iriola, with the right players, can create something special. On to Brentford, and they had a terrible season last year, especially the second half. They were showing relegation form. They had injuries. Henry was out for a long time. Ivan Toney, of course, suspended for a long time. They're going to have to sell Toney, I think, to then reinvest some of the money in the defence, basically. Some of those defenders last year, they just weren't up to it. Whether they can improve and they can keep some clean sheets, because Brentford, they were quite good the season before. I think Brentford could do with someone in the middle as well that can control the game for them. I think they lack it. The games where I watch them and I think that's a good performance are the games where they sort of sit back against a big team and they get it tactically spot on. But the games at home where they're expected to dominate, they don't quite do it. And I think they need a plan B. And that is Thomas Frank's job this summer. On to Brighton, and another team that really didn't have a great second half of the season. They were in Europe. They got knocked out of Europe, of course. And I think that's why I'm just tempering the expectations on Aston Villa as well, because being in Europe, especially if it's your first time in Europe in a while, especially the Champions League for Villa, they're going to go all in for it, and there will be some Sunday games that they lose, I'm sure, just as Brighton did. But Brighton, all across the season, really didn't defend well. Very risky game that they play under De Zerbi, and it showed on a few occasions. They had no clean sheet in like the first 11 games. I think BTTS landed in every single one of those games at the start of last season. So I would expect them to finish mid-table, but they need improvements and they need a manager. They don't even have a manager at this moment in time. Will Graham Potter go back? He would be my pick. He knows the club. He knows the sort of structure there as well, what's expected, and he was doing great work before he moved on to Chelsea. So mid-table would be my assessment of Brighton this season. Chelsea have got a new manager. Pochettino was sacked, and I think the new manager coming in, he's got a tough job because a lot of those players seemed surprised, shocked, disappointed that Pochettino was let go. So the first few weeks, he's got to sort of win them over a little bit. Chelsea fans, I think, will be expecting Champions League football. They want to push for Champions League. That's it. That's the aim. That should be the minimum. And let's see what they can do. My prediction is that they will miss out. I do think there's going to be better teams, and I think they will regret letting Pochettino go. That's potentially a hot take, but I think they will. Crystal Palace under Glasner, one of the best teams in the last sort of 10 weeks of the league. I think they will continue pushing, and again, it hinges on who they can keep, similar to Bournemouth with Solanke. If they can keep Eze, they can keep Elise, Wharton as well. What a player he looks like. And if he has a good Euros, if he features in the Euros and shows his worth, I mean, he already has shown his worth at Palace in that second half of the season. And they've made some good signings already. They're active. They're on the up, Crystal Palace. I have no thoughts at all that they will get dragged into any sort of relegation battle. I think they will be pushing, depending on the fixture list. Again, you know, momentum is a crazy thing. If they get a favourable start to the season in terms of the fixtures, I think they can push for Europe. I really do. Certainly top 10. Certainly top 10. On to Everton then, and Sean Dyche did a pretty good job, I think, last year. If you take away the points deduction, comfortable mid-table finish for Everton. And, yeah, off the field needs to be sorted. They came out yesterday and say that they're no longer getting investment from 777. So I guess they're still looking for investment and to sort of sell the club as well. They've got a new stadium being built. I just think they need to revitalise the squad a little bit. Maybe they need to sell Onana or Calvert-Lewin just to work out some funds so that they can reinvest, because they've got a bit of an ageing squad. When you've got Seamus Coleman still playing most weeks, you know, when he came back, I mean, come on. They need to just revitalise a little bit and bring in some standout players. I just don't see any standout performers for Everton this season. McNeil's a good player, but he's not the most consistent in the world. Calvert-Lewin the same. So if they can bring in someone who has that high quality and consistency, I think that'll be massive for them. And I don't think they're in any danger of going down under Sean Dyche. Mid-table. Thanks for watching so far. If you're enjoying this, leave a comment with any thoughts that you have on what I've discussed so far. And hit like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next bit of the video, wherever it is. It might be down here, might be over here. See ya. To Fulham, and I do think they could struggle if the goals dry up again, as they did in parts last year. Their away form was terrible. If they don't improve that, I think they will be struggling for relegation, fighting off relegation. I'm not saying they'll get relegated, but I think they'll be certainly in the mix with a few teams. Ipswich Town have just come up, back-to-back promotions. Absolutely fantastic. Superb. McKenna is staying, and that is a massive boost for Ipswich as well. Ed Sheeran needs to get his hand in his pocket and sponsor them again, and give them a bit of transfer money, because they need a striker. They need somebody that can get them 15, 20 goals and ensure that they stay up. Leicester City, no manager at the moment, and that's going to be a big question mark, isn't it, over the next few weeks? Who do they get in? Who can come in and keep them up? I think, personally, the best thing for them to do would be maybe to appoint one of his coaches that was with him in the Championship, just so you can just transition nicely. You need continuity when you get promoted. I think it's very important that you're not chopping and changing players and managers. You saw what happened at Forest. They struggled massively, just stayed up in the season before last. I think it'll be close for Leicester, but I think they'll stay up. I do think they'll stay up. Listen, it's hard to predict who's going to go down this season. The next team, Liverpool, they're not. The next team alphabetically, Liverpool, I think they'll challenge. Arne Slot coming in, I think he'll have the players brought in for him. Those sort of decisions will be taken away from him, which I think he's coming in as a head coach, and his job is just to continue the great work he's done over the last few seasons and try and move that brand of football that he has onto Liverpool. And if he can do that, I think they'll keep Salah. I think they'll keep Nunez. I think maybe it was a Klopp issue with Nunez and potentially with Salah as well. I think they'll stay. I think Van Dijk will stay, at least for one season. They'll give this guy a chance. And I would expect them to at least finish third, Liverpool, at least. Because on their day, with the players they've got, I think they might need to bring in maybe another defender, maybe another centre-back, and maybe a right-back. Because if you bring in a right-back for Liverpool, you can then move Trent into midfield permanently. Just put him there with another defensive midfielder holding all the time and let him create, right? And then you have a good, solid right-back that can also offer the explosiveness. Bradley, was it? Popped into the team last season and then maybe he got injured or something, but he could be an option. Let's see if Slot has any of his own guys in mind in terms of signings. We'll see in the first few months of the summer. But I expect Liverpool to challenge, and Man City, the next team on the list, I expect them to challenge. I expect them to be charged as well for the 115 charges. I expect them potentially to get docked points or something. If you look at the relegation odds this year, they are 33-1, which is incredibly low for Man City. So I think the bookies are expecting some sort of announcement there with Man City. Listen, if they win the league, it'll be 5 times in a row. That's boring. It's boring for the Premier League. And in terms of the charges, some comments will not like this. There was somebody that unsubscribed when I talked about the 115 charges for City. It's not necessarily on the pitch, it's off the pitch, of course. But that's how they got to where they are on the pitch, right? Is the off-the-pitch stuff in the past. Pumping in money to the club from the owners, essentially, as sponsorships, overinflated prices. It just feels boring to me. It just doesn't feel right. And if they win 5 league titles in a row because of it, well done, but they should be punished. Manchester United, will they have a new manager? Ten Hag apparently is going to learn his fate today when this goes out on the 3rd of June. I think he could stay. I think he could go. I don't know. It depends on who's available and if you can get them. If Tuchel is saying to Man United, I want to come, yes, you get him in. You get him in. I know it's harsh on Ten Hag, who's just won a cup, but Tuchel has got a great record in terms of getting to Champions League finals and winning trophies, and he's a good manager. Chelsea should have never sacked him. Let's be straight about that. So I think if Man United can get him, they should. And in terms of expectations for Man United, I would expect them to challenge for Europe, and that doesn't mean Champions League for them anymore. It just doesn't. I think they need a striker. Højlund, can he be who they want them to be? Maybe, but not yet. He's still so young. They need somebody that can come in and say, I'm going to get you 25 goals this year in the Premier League. I'm just going to do it. Because that's the difference sometimes. And they need to close the space, the gap between their defensive midfield. There's just so much space in the middle for Manchester United, and it's so easy to play against them. It's so easy to play through them. So easy to have shots on target against them. They were right up there in terms of shots faced with Sheffield United, Burnley, Luton, the teams that got relegated. Newcastle United not in Europe, and I do think this could be a blessing for Newcastle United. If they can keep hold of Isak, Bruno Guimaraes, and then just work with the team they've got. There's a lot of young players there, players like Livramento, Gordon, that I think would hugely benefit from, coaching 7 days a week between games and not being in Europe, not overworking for a season. And it's just whether they will stick around. Players like Gordon especially, he was superb last year, and I hope he gives them one more season without Europe, because those players got a taste of Champions League football, didn't they, last year? And, it's hard to juggle these things, of course, but Newcastle will be expecting to finish, I reckon, at least 6th. They'll want Europa at least, but without Europe, they will be able to, as I say, with Eddie Howe, work really hard on the training ground. Let's say they're playing Chelsea or United or City, Arsenal on a Sunday. City are away somewhere in the Champions League. Newcastle have got a home game against City, and they've got all week to plan. I think when you've got a coach like Eddie Howe, that is a massive benefit. And of course, if they can keep Isak and Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali will come back eventually as well, and that is going to be a massive boost. I think they just need... I don't know. I don't know where they need recruits. I'd say maybe a defender, because up top, if they can keep Barnes fit, he looked pretty good when he came back as well, scoring goals. So Barnes, Gordon, Almiron will probably go, players like that, and Callum Wilson not getting any younger. Will they bring in another striker? Because Isak and Wilson, they do spend a bit of time injured most seasons. Isak not too much, but he did, and Wilson has had his fair share of injuries. Nottingham Forest, I think they could get dragged into it this season. It's hard to actually pick teams to go down because the quality now is really high in the Premier League, and the teams that have come up as we've seen, they all like to play good football. Ipswich, Southampton, and Leicester City, they all want to play the right way, whether they can get that goal scorer. And I think it's the same with Forest, really. I think they could get pulled into a relegation battle for sure. That's my general prediction for them this season. It's just uninspiring, isn't it, for Nuno? When you watch them, and I think he's going to be one of the first. If they don't start well, he's going to be one of the first to, have his neck on the line and potentially lose his job. Southampton with Russell Martin, I think they will stick with him regardless of how the season goes. I think they'll try and play the right way as they do. They keep the ball, but they should learn, as all the teams that are coming up should, from Burnley last year. In some of the games, Burnley were keeping the ball well. They had 66% possession, I think it was, against Man United, and then lost the game. It happened time and time again. If you can't score, you're not going to win. And if you don't win, you're not going to get points. And if you don't get points, you're going back down. So for Southampton, I think they'll get pulled into a relegation battle. But I do believe they can survive. I think they've got Adams and Armstrong. If they can keep both of them and improve on it, and hopefully Armstrong takes his form into the Premier League. The system was slightly different as well. I think they really do look to exploit his traits, Adam Armstrong, whereas they might not have used his running in behind as much when I saw them in the Premier League last season. Last time they were in the Premier League, a couple of seasons ago. From Southampton to Tottenham. Tottenham had fourth and they lost it, and it was theirs to lose, I feel. And Andrew will be disappointed by that. He'll be disappointed by the reliance on Maddison, Van de Ven, Son. And that leads me to think they need a new defender for when Van de Ven is out, or a Dragerson maybe can come in, Romero. It feels like he's not happy being a substitute, Dragerson, from what he says and what his agent has said and stuff. So, bit of a strange signing, unless you plan to play three at the back, because Romero and Van de Ven, if you're playing two at the back, they're the two. There's no question about it. But when Van de Ven was injured, they dropped off. They weren't the same team. And same with Maddison, same with Son. So if they can just bring in some players that can come in and fill the gaps a little bit, I think they'll get over the line in those games where they need the squad. I think they messed up last year, Spurs, because they weren't in Europe. They got knocked out of the Carabao Cup in the first round. They, like I said about Newcastle, they had that time on the training pitch, but they weren't able to win the games when Maddison was out, when Van de Ven was out, or Romero, and that's a shame. And they need to sort out the Richarlison-Son situation, the flip-flopping them, left wing, centre forward, number 9, number 7, whatever. You need a striker that comes into the team and says, I'm the number 9, I'm the striker, I'm the one that's going to get 25, 30 goals. If they went and signed Solanke, I think that'd be a good signing. He's on the up. He's just had his best season ever. He would be a good signing. Ivan Toney would be a good signing. These are players that have proved they can score goals in the Premier League, and not just that, they can bring in players to the game. They can bring in Son, they can bring in Maddison, they can bring in Kulusevski, they can bring in Brennan Johnson, and any other signings. Eze is being touted for Tottenham at the moment. That's the latest rumour on Eze. That would be a superb signing, wouldn't it? On to West Ham, and they've appointed Lopetegui. Uninspiring choice, I would say, for me. David Moyes finished, 8th or 9th in the Premier League this season. They were 8th for a large part of that, and that's good, isn't it, for West Ham? I guess. I think looking at Lopetegui, what West Ham are trying to do here is maybe attract better players, maybe attract a different type of player from different locations. Lopetegui, with the languages that he can speak, can he bring in players that David Moyes might not have been able to bring in or attract? It is possible, but I think tactically they're not a million miles away when you look at the football. Certainly the football under Lopetegui at Wolves, I know he's managed Madrid and Spain and everything, so there is obviously potential for him to play a different way. There's certainly an expectancy, if you get the job as Spain manager, to not play the way West Ham played last year, or the way Wolves played under Lopetegui. And Real Madrid obviously the same with the expectant playing style. So that'll be interesting. I don't think they'll do better than 8th. West Ham. So will they regress under Lopetegui? I think so. They've got bids in for some exciting young players at the moment. 30 million for a Brazilian youngster, wonder kid. Let's see how these work out. And yeah, it'll be interesting. But I think, again, he's one of, like Nuno, he's one of the ones that is going to be right up there for odds on to be sacked first this season. And last but not least, Wolves fans, I do believe you will be dragged into a relegation battle. I'm not sure at what part of the season, but I do think you will. I think they took the foot off the gas majorly in the second half of the season under Gary O'Neill. They had some big performances, especially at home. I think they could lose a couple of players. I think if they lose Ait-Nouri on that left side, he's a very, very interesting player. Very good at finding space at the top end of the pitch and defensively solid, you know. And then Neto as well, if somebody comes in for him, they really have to replace these players well or they will struggle. And they've got to, I think, still go out and sign someone that can consistently score. Hwang has done well when he's played, and Cunha has had a great season compared to last, that's for sure. Let's see. I still think they can struggle. I still think there's potential for Wolves to struggle this season. So they were my predictions for the 24-25 season. I'm probably going to do some more as the season draws closer. We've got the Euros to come though, haven't we, where I will be releasing a lot of interesting tools. I'm going to be releasing a player props model soon for the Euros, so stay tuned for that. And if you've enjoyed this video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. What is this? I have no idea.